I'm suggesting politics is fake.
Let's just say there's a vaccine that is approved and even distributed before the election. Would you get it?
Well, I think that's going to be an issue for all of us.
If and when the vaccine comes, and it's not likely to go through all the tests that needs to be and the trials that are needed to be done. When we finally do, God willing, get a vaccine, who's going to take the shot? Who's going to take the shot? You can be the first one to say, sign me up. They now say it's okay.
Kayfabe? Kayfabe, the system of stratified lies that professional wrestling is undergirded by. I wrote this essay anticipating that professional wrestling was going to turn out to be incredibly important. And in fact, I thought it was going to determine the presidency. So when you have a situation where the news media wants to promote somebody like Paul Krugman, they don't call him controversial Professor Paul Krugman. They call him New York Times columnist or Nobel laureate Paul Krugman.
If we discovered that space aliens were planning to attack, and we needed a massive buildup to counter the space alien threat, and really inflation and budget deficits took secondary place to that, this slump would be over in 18 months. And then if we discovered, whoops, we made a mistake, there aren't actually any space aliens.
So we need Orson Welles, is what you're saying.
No, there was a Twilight Zone episode like this in which scientists fake an alien threat in order to achieve world peace. Well, this time we don't need it. We need it in order to get some fiscal stimulus.
They call him New York Times columnist or Nobel laureate Paul Krugman. But if it's Jordan Peterson and Jordan hasn't signed up for some sort of consensus position, he has to be controversial Professor Jordan Peterson. Now, it's true that he's a controversial professor, but that's actually the gated institutional narrative's special language for telling the audience who the good guys and the bad guys are. And if you go back to professional wrestling, this would be called heels and baby faces or faces. And so the idea is that Paul Krugman would be a face and Jordan Peterson would be a heel, but instead of being open about the fact that wrestling is a simulated performance sport, in the journalistic endeavor, we pretend that journalism is actually a search for truth, which I find hysterically funny.
To do with a 95-year-old leukemia patient who was traveling from Florida to Michigan, and she had to wear an adult diaper. Now, while she was going through security, the TSA pulled her aside and thought it was a little strange that she was wearing a diaper. They said that it was both firm and wet, so they took her to a private room.
And you've described this as kayfabe in the past.
Right.
Can you explain what that is, people who've maybe not heard that?
Sure. I think one of the problems is that we don't have good language for dealing with multi-layered deception. And the two places that I thought had pretty good language were the intelligence community and professional wrestling. So professional wrestling was the easier, it's hard to get spooks to give up their secrets. So what I did is I started to look into professional wrestling and what are all of the terms that they have to maintain to keep track what the actual storylines are, what the simulated storyline. Sometimes you have a simulated storyline that apparently breaks into actual reality, like you're breaking the fourth wall, but it's actually a controlled structure where you're still in a fake story. So they call things that are fake works, and they call things that are real shoots. So a worked shoot is actually something that is set inside of a fake storyline, is apparently real and breaks the fourth wall, but is in fact fake. So you're talking about tertiary and eventually quaternary levels of deception. I don't think the human mind can do much more than 4 layers of lying. But kayfabe is the organized structure of lies that undergirds professional wrestling and is kept it as a simulated sport for about a century. All sorts of human activity veer between utter terror and boredom. And why is that? Well, because if something is actually an unbounded negative potential experience, people are very hesitant to engage. So if two wrestlers can really do damage to each other, they're going to circle each other for a very long time before engaging because they don't want to risk anything that they don't have to. So you could have bouts that would go on for 4 or 5 hours and basically nothing happened. Well, this is true in all sorts of endeavors. People in the know in finance don't really want to risk their money. So they come up with all sorts of elaborate ways to make sure that they're going to be okay no matter what happens. In politics, the same is true. Nobody wants to simply find that they're out of a job because they lost an election. So there's an elaborate revolving door between politically related occupations like punditry or lobbying and actually being a representative. So you have all sorts of fakery that is intended to make stable careers for the participants and to present an engaging and regular product for those in the audience. And so I believe that in some sense what you're seeing is what I call K-fabrication, where real activities that are dangerous and or boring tend to get sanitized by the participants so that they can present an as-if product to those outside of the structure and not themselves get hurt and continue to make money off of it. And I think that that's what happened in professional wrestling. There's a real competition for airtime, for fame, but there's a fake competition, which is a scripted series of pretend bouts where the decisions are actually known in advance. And that's very similar to what I see happening in war, in finance.
3 people working as one with one goal in mind, to defeat, or should I say demolish, the Twin Towers.
In media and particularly journalism.
Blew me away because the Today Show, man, that's a hot show in the morning, you know, for me. And Matt Lauer, man, I mean, we like Matt Lauer. He brings the female out in me because that Matt Lauer, you know, Matt Lauer is hot. Matt Lauer is hot. You know,
and tear down the Twin Towers.
Yeah. Are you sure you know where the impound yard is?
Oh, stop stalling. Come on.
I can't think. There's all this noise.
Or is it because I've built a stronghold around Greenland? I've driven you out of Western Europe? And I've left you teetering on the brink of complete annihilation.
I'm not beaten yet. I still have armies in the Ukraine.
Yeah, the Ukraine. You know what the Ukraine is? It's a sitting duck. A road apple, Newman. The Ukraine is weak. It's feeble. I think it's time to put the hurt on the Ukraine.
I come from Ukraine. You not say Ukraine weak?
Yeah, well, we're playing a game here, pal.
Ukraine is game to you? How about I take your little Boris?
Absolutely obscure and, in fact, made up. Russia's biggest bank, military intelligence disinformation campaign to Russia, major Russian bank, Russia's decrepit giant natural gas company. Putin had with Russian business leaders today. Russia invaded Ukraine, the Russian ruble. Putin to Russia, Russian businesses and Russian finance, the Russian economy. In Moscow, Putin meeting today sanctioned Russia's major Russian to Russia. President Putin, sanctions were all coordinated with other sanctions to Russia. Russia has been working to create for Russia to be cut out of to Russia its own sort of parallel system, global trade and finance altogether. Russian oligarchs against Iran could sanction President Putin himself to Russia. Best new thing in the world, Vladimir Putin's government. Russia. Little evidence of such activities appears to exist. And that was a made-up thing. Putin's government military intelligence disinformation campaign that Vladimir Putin was pushing as part of an information warfare offensive against a country that Russia wanted in its orbit.
Fabulous.
Absolutely obscure and, in fact, made up. Us, the UK, Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, and Russia.